Time now for Media Watch. James Creedon joins me. James, good evening to you. We're starting with the front pages of the British press on the election, of course, some with a rather biblical theme.
That's right, starting with two that definitely have a biblical theme. One in Scotland, where, of course, the issue of whether the Scottish National Party will get a big vote and get into government is central. Day of Reckoning, they say, with an image of Westminster, and the Times of London with a similar type theme, Judgment Day there for the London Times, and you can see there the sun peeking through Westminster, but also quite a lot of clouds in the sky as well. So I'm not sure what metaphor they're going for there, Rochelle, but perhaps they're trying to keep it vague. Meanwhile, the Daily Mirror has the removal van ready for the Conservatives. Send them packing, says the tabloid. Meanwhile, this is a weekly, but you can see again the extent to which the Scottish question is central to this election. Reflections on a Revolution is the front cover of that weekly magazine. Daily Express, for their part, are supporting the UKIP party, which of course wants the UK out of the EU. The Conservatives, under pressure, have said that they will hold a referendum on the issue if they get voted back into power. Labour say they absolutely won't, that we want to stay in the EU. Vote to keep Britain great, says the Daily Express, and some detractors of that paper have done this little mash-up called the Faily Express. Europe gives you cancer, says Tupac. Elvis backs UKIP. In other words, ridiculous content and editorial, and a ridiculous editorial line, according to that particular satirical take on the paper.
Well, James, amid some of these quite catchy headlines, if you will, the British press has been criticised for being not very neutral in the run-up to these elections today.
That's right. Some saying it is really the most partisan example yet of press coverage of an election or press. And I think as best illustrated by The Sun, who in Scotland, for the Scottish Sun, supported the Scottish National Party. And south of the border in the rest of the UK, in Britain and Wales rather, saying that they were supporting the Conservatives, which actually is rather contradictory. Without getting into all the details, it shows that there isn't really a coherent editorial line there, that they're actually trying to preach to various different audiences. This morning's The Sun was using some rather unsavoury metaphors. We won't go into it, Rochelle, but well hung. Make sure you vote today to stop Britain ballsing up, or Labour ballsing up Britain. Now, one Twitter user bought up all the copies that he could of The Sun in his local shop in order to put them in recycling, because he just had enough of them trying to tell people how to vote. Yesterday's front page of The Sun resurrected this photo of Ed Miliband going back to May of last year, where he was looking rather undignified, eating a bacon butty, I believe. Now, that actually backfired on The Sun with this hashtag, Je suis Ed, picking up on the Je suis Charlie meme, where various people eating sandwiches and looking a bit silly, but generally supporting the Labour leader.
I'm not sure what eating habits have got to do with whether you're going to be a good Prime Minister or
Indeed.
not. But all right, social media has been campaigning also in these elections. It hasn't always gone to plan, though, for Ed Miliband in particular.
That's right, as we just saw there, but there's another example here where he put up this stone. This was a couple of days back. A better plan, a better future, and with a 6-point plan. Now, obviously, that was all about creating an image with him standing in front of the stone that would go viral. But it did become a source of mockery online. Hashtag Ed Stone, with various references to Moses, etc. So a lot of that kind of malarkey online. Dogs also featuring centrally today. Rochelle, dogs waiting sadly outside polling stations could be the election day meme. You can see here various dogs doing just that, in fact, and I suppose that'll give you a sense really of the level of the debate on occasion on social media. But it has been a little bit more intellectually challenging, I suppose, with some elements online. You have, for example, if I could find it, British Influence on Twitter, and they are sharing a lot of articles about the whole issue about a Brexit, a British exit, and whether this is a good or a bad idea. The fact that Britain could lose a lot of foreign policy and security influence. This from the point of view of Euractiv.com. So you do have a lot of, pretty highbrow debate as well on social media, but also dogs.
And just finally, selfies within polling booths are now allowed, apparently.
That's right, but only in specific zones. And Preston Council illustrates that. Well, what they've done is they have a designated selfie zone. And so it is certainly 2015, I think, Rochelle, when you see incidents such as that. I'll finish with just one or two cartoons. This is picking up on the Ed Miliband stone issue. And there you have, I think that's that is meant to be the leader of the Scottish National Party, Nicola Ferguson, adding her terms and conditions to those for promises for a better Britain. We'll finish with this one. This was a cartoon in the Times, I believe. Phew, thank God that's all over. Not just yet. And I suppose we'll leave that up to viewers' imagination. It could be mud, it could be muck. I'm not really sure what's going on there. But it does show a little bit of disregard for the political class in general, I think. Definitely
leave it up to our viewers' interpretation there. All right, James, thanks very much for keeping us up to date with Media Watch. All right, time now for Focus. And as millions cast their ballots in the UK general elections, analysts say for the first time, Scottish voters could play a vital role in determining the outcome. If no political party wins a majority of votes, the Labour Party would need the support of Scotland's 59 MPs to form a minority government. Scotland's political psyche was re-energised last September during a referendum on independence. And in today's general elections, voters want to have their say.
Scottish weightlifter Alex Richardson was ranked number 6 in the world. Now a veteran, he coaches some of Britain's most promising young athletes.
No!
Among them, his 15-year-old son, Daniel.
One lift away from British history. No under 15's ever done it.
The coach can be proud of his son. At this National Youth Championship, held in Glasgow's East End, Daniel has broken the under-15 Scottish record with a lift of 103 kilos. For the Richardsons, weightlifting is more than a sport. It's a ray of hope in one of Britain's most deprived areas.
We're diverting and preventing kids ever being involved in antisocial behaviour or crime. So it's important that the community also shows that it's got a young, vibrant society that are capable of being top-class sports people across Europe.
Easterhouse in Glasgow. You are more likely to be stabbed here than anywhere else in the UK. For men, the average life expectancy is just 54. But for the first time in decades, Scotland's poor feel their voice counts in a general election.
In places like Easterhouse, people who haven't voted in 20 or 30 years are saying they're coming out to vote, and generally those people are voting SNP. They're not voting Labour. They don't see their future with Labour.
In Scotland, Labour's opponents are now the Scottish National Party rather than the Conservatives. They're young, energetic, driven by the lingering taste of the adrenaline they experienced in last September's referendum. Natalie McGarry is a 33-year-old candidate with a fighting chance.
What people are telling us is that the referendum opened up their eyes to the fact that the Labour Party in opposition have been limp and ineffective. They have voted with the Tories on austerity, and people are suffering from austerity and cuts as a result of the recession.
The SNP have been challenging Labour activists, seen here in red, on their home ground. But Margaret Curran, who sits on the front bench in the House of Commons, and her predecessors have dominated politics here for 6 decades.
I don't deny the polls are challenging, but when I think we get down to the fundamental issues about how can we improve people's lives, what are the policies for the future, then I think policy by policy, Labour wins out.
On the campaign trail, Margaret Curran drops into the weightlifting competition with fellow Labour MP Paul Martin. Voluntary sector leaders complain to them about funding cuts, but they point out that the devolved Scottish Government is controlled by the SNP.
The City of Glasgow has the lowest funding from the Scottish Government across Scotland. So I would say to community groups here, you must stand up to the Scottish Government because we're not getting a fair deal from them, and I think that's what really matters to people here.
Many ordinary voters, though, have already made up their minds.
I was always brought up to believe to vote for Labour, from which I have done for a very long time. But this time I'm not. I'm actually going to vote SNP because I think they're offering a lot more for Scotland. I think they're more for Scotland. Labour have just pulled the wool over their eyes over the years.
These young athletes could be Britain's future Olympic stars. They could also see an independent Scotland in their lifetimes.
I want independence myself. I believe that Scotland will still want to be a part of the UK. I could see myself in 10 years' time, good job, doing well in weightlifting, and we'd still be a part of the United Kingdom.
It's important that the young people that we see here, who are community leaders, they are national ambassadors for Scotland and Great Britain, that their generation is allowed to express their voice and not be kept down by small-minded politics.
The election results will be critical, not just for Scotland, but for the future of Britain.
This election, Scotland is the centre. Scotland is the deciding factor about whether Labour return as a minority, probably, or the Tories.
Whoever wins the election, from now on, Scotland will punch above its weight.
Our Focus report coming to you today from Scotland. OK, we're going to take a short break, but we'll be back with more international news after the break with our top story, of course, the UK general elections. Do stay tuned.